Bewitching out.
That's something Ken had.
Bewitchingness.
Divorce.
I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Town of Abington Planning Commission meeting to order. I'd like to have a roll call for attendance. Mr. Boswell.
Sir, Mr. Anderson, absent. Dr. White, absent. Mr. Wilson,
Here, present.
Mr. Humphries,
Here.
Mr. Schuman,
Here.
Mr. Kelly,
Here.
Mr. Elson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Mr. Boswell, I don't know if you want to note it, but this was the night of one of the forums, and for Town Council, Mr. Anderson may be at one of the forums. I can't hit it, so I don't know who he was, but he was certainly scheduled to be there.
Thank you, Mr. Person.
All right, attached to your agenda tonight, you have a draft copy of the minutes of the February 26th meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those? Are there any modifications that are necessary?
I have a question. It's under E, old business, first paragraph. It says, discussion ensued with the consensus being that either the town manager or the town council member remain ad hoc. Shouldn't that be ex officio as opposed to ad hoc? Or does it mean the same thing?
I believe Dr. White corrected us on that at the meeting,
He
didn't
did.
he? Ex officio.
Ad hoc is for that specific duty.
Yeah, but, I mean, I thought that's what they want, what we talked about was ex officio because that person wouldn't vote. Now, I know that there's a different draft tonight, but that's, my recollection was that there would be somebody attending, but they couldn't vote.
I'm going to move we table it anyway. I'm going to move if I get any direction. I want to move we table it anyway, Kenny.
Okay.
It's not something I actually want to see happen, to tell you the truth.
All right, let's deal with our minutes here. Should ad hoc be changed to ex officio?
I mean, that's what I thought the discussion was.
I wasn't present, but I would assume that if that's what you wanted, was a non-voting member.
That's
Yes.
what the discussion was, is my recollection.
And Dr. White actually corrected us, if you'll remember.
He did correct us.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. You want to make a motion to make that change? Yes, you have another.
Mr. Chairman, and again, I wasn't here, but I'm just looking at them and noticed that it shows Mr. Anderson absent, but yet it shows him voting throughout.
He came in late. He was late.
Oh, okay. I got you. Okay.
Yeah, but he was here.
Never mind.
Okay. So ad hoc is this purpose only.
Well, I knew that we changed that to ex officio and also amend the minutes to show that Mr. Anderson was present.
Any other modifications necessary? All right, there's a motion been made to approve the minutes with the two modifications, that is changing ad hoc to ex officio and showing Mr. Anderson present, as he did come in late at the last meeting, but was present. Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
All right, any additional discussion? All in favor say aye. And opposed?
Abstain.
All right, sir. So Mr. Kelly abstained as not being present at that meeting, and Mr. Boswell, if you'll make those two changes in the minutes, please.
Yes, sir.
All right, moving on in our agenda, the first matter that we have on tonight is Marathon Realty Corporation owner. Parcel number 021-1-5B, Zone B2. Linda Cox, Eastman Credit Union, Luther D. Kyle, with Rash West Architects as representatives, who is here on behalf of Marathon Realty Company to make the presentation. Yes, sir. If you'd like to come up, please, and for the record, state your name and your business address for us, please.
Yes, my name is Luther Kane. I'm with Kane Rash West Architects, and we represent Eastman Credit Union. And we made the submittal that you have before you. In terms of a presentation per se, I, quite frankly, came here to answer questions rather than to present per se. I would, however, as you look at the information that you do have, you'll see the prototype, if you will, that Eastman Credit Union uses for their branches. It's it's almost a franchise concept, and they've built it many times before. And to perhaps give a little more life, if you will, to the copies you have in front of you. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen the Eastman Credit Union that was built probably about 4 years ago now at Exit 7 on Lee Highway. That's probably the closest branch to you. And in almost all ways, this building, the landscaping, the signage, all of the above is not identical to that building, but very, very similar. What you have here, of course, is a representation of the front of the building. The black and white rendering down at the bottom probably doesn't help you a great deal as compared to the photography. Since it's actually been built, you can more or less look at it. So with that, honestly, I prefer to answer questions rather than to go over what you already have in front of you.
All right, sir.
Is there a start date set for construction or a target?
Well, the start date, we've already blown right past that, just to be honest with you. There have been many delays, which you know about better than I, as it relates to getting approvals on the development as a whole. And the dirt work is underway at this point. The client I represent is prepared to begin construction just as soon as the site work is done. The developer in this case is preparing the site pad ready for my client. So as soon as that is done, they're prepared to move forward.
And I get Mr. Kane went in doing this and reviewing this.
Mhm.
Did they look and see that it was in the entrance corridor overlay of Avenue?
It's my understanding, yes, that it is.
I mean, I know it is. I mean,
Yeah.
but did they recognize that it was?
Honestly, not until after we submitted it, it was pointed out to us.
I guess the reason I'm asking is
Sure.
that you have a wonderful Eastman Credit Union here in Abington now, excuse me, that's on Valley Street. It doesn't
Yes.
follow this prototype.
Yes.
And I think there were many in the community that were hoping that you were going to follow the prototype that was more like Abington and a little less like Middleton, well, I don't know, Upper Tennessee.
Understand.
So,
This is honestly, this is the prototype that they've been following on new builds, if you will, since the first similar facility to this was built in Gate City in excess of 10 years ago. Excuse me now.
is there there's not anybody here that's not an architect? Is there?
Pardon?
There's nobody here that's with you. I said there's supposed to be somebody else that was with you, Linda Cox.
No, she is an owner's rep for the facility, but I'm here by myself, I'm afraid.
Anyway, the only thing I wanted to ask her was, doesn't she want to be more implicit in the community? And that was my question. That was my question I had saved up for her,
Mhm.
because I would think that she would want to have a design that was more conducive to what the architecture is of an overall avenue, that will be a unique building, and there's no other building like it. There's no other building that has that kind of, and I want to use the word, it's kind of like like a national park feel. That has, like something you find in a national park. It's great. I mean, it's wonderful, and it's a beautiful building. It's just kind of discongruent to some of the stuff that's in action. Of course, you all know this.
I don't disagree with your point. I understand that those are diverging concepts. Their franchise concept versus the existing buildings, if you will, that you find up and down your main street.
And of course, I'm always one that says, if you want to come in and you want the community to spend money with you, then you want to look more like the community, and you want to be respectful of the community.
I understand your point.
Oh, that's it. So, if you wouldn't mind carrying that back,
I'll be happy to.
I mean, that's just from me. The rest of the yeah.
Well, it's kind of like it's a brand. I mean, it's like if Pals decided to build one out of red brick, you'd be like, what?
Well,
It's something you identify as soon as you drive by. You're like, oh, that's Eastman Credit Union.
Well, and I understand what you're saying, Scott. One of the things that I look at is prime example is Charlottesville. Now you go to Charlottesville and find the McDonald's downtown. It looks just like one of the brick buildings. It looks like a federal style building.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things about what you're branding. Now are we wanting to brand for them, or are we wanting to brand for the town? And so that's kind of that.
Yeah, if the entire development out there was held to that, I
It's
would
going to
agree
be.
with you.
It's actually supposed to be. In fact,
Then
we told them
that's-
when we were here that like Food City, we helped design the Food City building. And we told them that we were going, and at that time, Steven Spangler said, you know, he said, we're telling everybody that they're going to be held to the same standard that we are. And so, you know, and they knew it would be, I mean, Steven Spangler, you know, almost had to camp out down here for a while because we were going through his plans and they were rejected several times. So that was,
That's
you know,
good,
and so
That was
in that entrance corridor overlay, if it wasn't entrance corridor overlay, it's one, you know, it's a different animal.
Right.
But anyway.
I think one of the things I would be interested in, and I hear everything that you're saying, Rick, is more in terms of the brick colors and the natural stone colors matching up with the Food City commercial development. If we are to stick with this style, I think that at least have the brick and the stone colors similar, maybe roof colors similar as well.
Well, it's real interesting because in looking at that, it almost has a federal look with the pediment that's in front. If it was covered, you know, I think we have all your open trusses there in the front, and it almost has that federal style or federal look. And if you had, basically that covered and your columns, you know, kind of more brick or, you know, stucco,
Are they natural stone?
They are.
Yes, they are.
They are. Mm-hmm. They are natural stone.
It's a very authentic in terms of materials. Now, you can certainly argue that it may not be the materials that you prefer, but there's nothing faux about any material that's on the building.
I didn't say that a bit.
I understand. Clarification, we're talking. I understand your point. And it's, but I assure you it runs contrary to their desires to, you know, be continuous with their brand.
I understand that, but they also want to come in and make money out of Avenue.
They're
And
here
that's
now.
not
They're
for
here.
you to answer.
Yeah, again,
That's not for you to answer. That I'm just,
I
you know.
understand, but I am their representative.
Yeah.
To the degree that I can speak for them, I'll try to.
Yeah.
I think they'd feel differently if they were on Main Street, obviously, and they'd be in the historic district, and I think they would take pause as it relates to branding, if you will, to this degree. But I assure you it's their desire to brand to this degree at the location that they're proposed to be.
And that is a historic property. It might not be a historic district, and it wasn't put in the historic district as of now, but it is a historic property. The Meadows is.
I see.
So, you know, so anyway, and that's why I thought I'd bring this up. I mean, it's not that I'm not going to vote. It's not that I'm not going to vote for you. I just want, I just want some thought process for them. You know, anytime you go in the community and you want to make money off the community, to me, you're going to want to do. You're going to hold yourself to the community standard. That's all.
Understand.
I'll get you some more.
There you go. It's always appreciated, I assure you.
Would it be worthwhile to go back with what's been approved at Food City and bring those back to us with a comparison and try to get more similarities? Mr. Kelly, I think that's what you're saying.
It's something we could dig up. I'm more interested in just making sure that the colors aren't
Yes, sir.
off. You know, I could live with, I hear what Rick is saying about, you know, you put the stucco over the timbers up there and
Well,
then
or
you have-
just even if you just put I'm trying to think of the word clapboard, something in a clapboard, something, but but to cover the pediment up with the open, probably be cheaper too. But anyway,
I guess where does that open beam exposure face on the lot?
Actually, it faces the interstate, if you will. This being the interstate, the exposed timber, the timber frame component is here at the entry.
and where is Food City exactly?
Food City is over here. And
What's right there?
their gas facility,
That's
I think, is
traffic
here.
circle.
I don't have their drawings, actually, I don't have their finished drawings at all. I have their site plans, so this is their gas and go, if you will, and their food store faces this way. Eastman Credit Union would face this way. This being their drive-through, which orients to the roundabout.
And the roundabout being at the top of the hill. And the roundabout being at the top of the hill. So it's basically gonna be the welcome to that whole center, pretty much, what do you think, or close to it? One of the first buildings we'll see?
Well, it would be, as you come around the roundabout.
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, well, I mean, we can pull the prior thing that was voted on Food City, and bring it back at the next meeting if you so desire. At the same time, I'm not sure what you all's, I mean, you're behind schedule right now, and it'll be.
I wonder how close to how close to the pad are they to getting the pad ready?
They're blasting rock now.
Right.
And actually, we are scheduled to have a meeting with Appalachian Design that's doing the civil work on this project and making a pad ready next week, and they'll tell us better. I'm not prepared to give you a good answer.
But do you have any like ballparks? Do you think it's a month out, or 2 months out? Or?
I would think it's easily more than a month.
More than
I would think
My
so.
last progress meeting with them on this project was, the target date, I believe, is June the 1st for having the pads ready.
So how would this affect you if we
Well, I mean, you know, if it's my client's desire, if it's your desire to see a redesign, and if it's my client's desire to do so, you know, we could be happy to be back in front of you again. But I think if they were here, they would ask for a vote on this concept. And if the vote's no, then they'll reconsider their next move, if you will.
Yeah, because I mean, you bought that from, and I'm
It
sure
has not been purchased.
Oh, haven't been purchased. Okay, because that was
The
that
purchase is pending.
Hopefully, Steve Spangler mentioned to everybody, because he was going to tell everyone that the design, the overall concept of the whole shopping center is supposed to be fairly much the same, and it's going to be off their main design.
You know, my concern with this is we've approved other franchises in the entrance corridor without any concern. We just, a couple of meetings ago, approved the redesign of Wendy's to conform with their corporate colors and their corporate franchise. And I don't really see a whole lot of difference in this. I mean, I understand your concern, but we have done that for hotels, for restaurants that are franchised. And I don't know that I see any difference with this and that situation with Wendy's personally.
Well, looking at it, I would say that franchising is one thing, but this is not a franchise. It's like a franchise, and they are not a franchise. They're a credit union.
Well, but the architect just said that that they design their buildings as if they were a franchise. So I don't see any difference between what he just said and what we approved for Wendy's. So if I was called upon to vote, I would vote in favor of this because I think that's been consistent to what we've done in the past.
Okay, but you also talked about the other word you used was redesign. And the thing about it is all of the properties you're talking about aren't new buildings, Kenny. They are buildings that are new. And this building is a new building. The other ones you talked about, such as Wendy's, is a redesign. You're exactly right. And it is an existing building. And there's a difference between an existing building and a new building. In a new building, you have a chance to get it right. In an old building, you don't have that much chance.
I guess my disagreement would be, I don't see this as being wrong. So that's my position.
I think, going back to what I said earlier, I could support if they want to do this with the color scheme similar to what we've approved for the existing Food City commercial complex in terms of brick colors, natural stone colors, and roof colors. I think I can support that as well.
I think that we have made all the people who came that voiced their opinions not to do this to begin with, that we made them a promise that we would try to hold this to the standard where that it would look very much like what the rest of town looks like. And I think that we would be doing them a disservice of what we've told them already. Now, if that's what we want to do, then so be it. But that's the only thing that I would have a problem with, is that when Steven Spangler was here, he said, we're gonna sell these out parcels, and you can hold them to the same standard you're holding us. We can't hold it to them. We can't hold them to it, but you all can hold it.
So, you know, just from reading in the papers, they've mentioned someday they want to put a hotel out here. And if I remember correctly, it was not, it was like a multi-story, like 4 or 5 stories or whatever. So how would you make that look like it belongs here?
Well, that's our job. I mean, that's part of what we're supposed to do. So, it's gonna be the Holiday Inn Express. Steven Spangler announced it the other day. And so the Holiday Inn Express is gonna be coming in. So it'll be our standard that will be set to that hotel. And it might be that it might not be, we had talked about, I guess was it in council, it wasn't in planning commission, about the number of stories that we would want to, we wouldn't want it to be an 8-story building and overshadow the creeper trail. That's one of the things we're trying to do, we're trying to prevent. So it's within the purview of this planning commission to try to do that. Whether we want to do that, that's up to us.
Well, it's really difficult to make like a 4 or 5 story building fit in. Just the scale of that building's really hard to make it fit into this type
And I'll
of
say
architecture.
again, materials on the exterior are about the
So-
closest that you can get.
So yeah, I would definitely say, yeah, if they can get into the color scheme and everything of the rest of the development, but I personally don't see a redesign of that. It's not, some buildings, like, if you got a pre-engineered metal building, you can wrap the skin of it any way you want and make it look like a variety of things from the outside, but this is really not something that I think you can wrap with a different look easily.
No, you would have to do a redesign.
Yeah.
It would have to be a redesign. A wonderful prototype is the building there on Valley Street. The Eastman Credit Union's already here. They're on Valley Street, right there at the
Yeah,
city.
that's
building.
terrible though. That you can't get in there. There's no handicap access.
Well, that has nothing to do with what the building looks like.
Well, right, but
But, that's what we're talking about. So, so we're looking at aesthetics, basically.
Well, it sounds like to me that the difference of opinion on the commission, first of all, is not, I don't hear anyone requesting a redesign of the building. I hear folks saying that they want to make it consistent with what has already been approved for Food City on one end of the table. And then also, other folks on the commission are saying that perhaps it should be approved as it's been presented tonight. Is that fair?
Well, I'm fine with changing the color scheme, as Greg and Scott have said. I don't think a redesign of the building is appropriate.
the one disadvantage I have, the approval of the Food City was before my time here, so I have no idea what it's supposed to look like.
Well, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. So we should pull that out. Jason, we should get that for you and let it.
Just ask Greg about it. We'll have to dig through share file to try to find that document.
Well, then I think the option is either to approve it or in the alternative, table it for tonight until our next meeting and bring it back and compare it to the materials already approved.
And it would also be nice to have somebody from Eastman Credit Union that can.
Yeah, that's a lot of burden on you.
Yeah, 'cause
I mean, it really is.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if that's your request to have one of the employees of ECU here, I'm sure they can make that happen for you.
And I think just being in the construction business, from what I see out there, I don't think this is going to hold them up. I don't.
And likewise, I would invite you to participate in looking at what's been approved for Food City.
Well, absolutely, and rather than have any misunderstanding, if you could forward that
Absolutely.
information to us, because honestly, we don't have it. We don't have it in our possession. We don't know what you've approved for that facility.
So the other thing, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to say is that when or where or who do we hold to the standards? If we capitulate once, then that's the slippery slope that we're done. And we won't be able to do anything to any of this, because they'll do what they want to do.
Typically, in other jurisdictions, projects like this, they have a set of design standards that are already written for that development. So I'm assuming from right here, there's not. It's more of a
The
general
design
agreement.
standards that have been approved thus far are for the commercial element of the interior. It had nothing to do with the out parcels.
Okay.
But we let everybody know at the beginning that the out parcels needed to conform to a similar look
Okay.
with the commercial development. Now, as you get to the actual sports complex, eventually when we get to that point, we've talked with our consultants that maybe the sports complex needs to look totally different from the commercial developments, so that when you're leaving that commercial development, you're entering into a recreational facility.
Interesting. All right, is there a motion to table this to our next meeting and do those things which have been discussed in terms of comparison with materials and then have it on our agenda next month?
Is there any motion?
Well, that's, I'm sitting here quietly listening. I'd be happy to entertain any motion.
Benefits of being the chairman.
All right, what's the pleasure?
Well, I was trying to open the door for Kenny to see if he wanted to go ahead and see if we could approve it. So I will move that we table this until the next meeting, depending on receipt of colors, and then after you can instruct Mr. Kane on what we, he can look at the other stuff and decide what he may or may not want to do.
All right. Second to that motion.
I'm gonna die of death right here, bro.
We're going to die a slow death.
There's no many choices. It's either yes, no, or maybe.
All right, motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
I just want to point out, and I'm a little bit reluctant, I know Rick's a little bit reluctant for he or I to make these motions
Yeah,
and
we are.
second them because of our relationship in the other governing body form. But keep in mind that if we take no action, then the meter starts running and this will be automatically approved within 60 days.
And I would note that while you gentlemen can make a motion and second a motion, you don't have the number to approve that without other members of the commission.
That's right.
So it's,
So it
get
should,
that off your shoulder.
it should
It's
be.
all using on my head, man.
We all know this, but it should be noted somewhere that this was to be looked at last month, but no one showed up. So I don't want, somebody back in Eastman Credit Union up the top going, hey, they're delaying us. Well, nobody showed up last month.
Yeah. that's
So
good.
I don't feel too bad, but anyway. So with that said, I would second the table motion.
all right, sir. Any additional discussion? Let's have a roll call vote on this, please.
Mr. Wilson? Mr. Schuman?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Austin?
Aye. All right, we'll have it on next month's agenda. We'll review this again. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I understand and I appreciate your vote, and I'll take it back to my owner. I don't want this to sound argumentative, but my directions, I think, are somewhat subjective to what I'm taking back to my owner. Could I request a statement that you agree on as what the objective for this design is? I mean, let's be fair. I've heard a very diverse group of opinions expressed by this commission, so I'm looking for direction.
So someone who was here when Marathon did the central portion, that whatever was agreed to then is what we need to say set forth. to
Well,
this.
So you want to emulate that, you want to emulate Food City?
Or complement.
And I think that's good that you asked this, because I don't think that's what I heard. I think what I heard from you, most of you, and I heard from Kenny, and I heard from Scott, and I heard from Greg, not from me, but from them, was colors. And that's the you know, to make sure that the color and the stone and that kind of stuff matched up what was Food City was producing.
Yeah, I was okay with that, but then, after that, y'all were saying, well, we did tell Marathon, the agreement was, so that's a little bit different shade there, and I'd like to see what Food City's doing out there, what's it gonna look like.
Yeah, we can provide that
Because-
to all the commissioners, we can provide it to you as well.
Well, thank you.
Because
But
it-
are my marching orders though to match the colors of Food City?
I don't think it necessarily has to match. I think that Mr. Wilson's comment that it needs to complement it to some extent.
Complement the
Is-
colorways.
Yes.
I think color to a certain degree and texture
Mhm.
and the types of materials. So if you got brick, natural stone, that was included in the original design for the Food City development. The colors were modified to go to a different color than what they were accustomed to using in most of their stores. And there was more of an incorporation of the natural stone colors into the development as well.
Was there a literal brick sample approved? I did Captain D's with you folks some months ago, and we brought color boards. But we weren't shooting for something in particular. We brought materials.
Right.
So if you have materials that were approved for Food City, it would make my life a lot easier.
Absolutely.
If you said, this is what we want, guys. And takes less of your time as well.
Yeah, it's been quite some time, and I don't know that any of us remember whether they brought those in or not.
I don't know, but I'm sure
We will.
Mr. Boswell can work with
We
you
will
and
find
find those
and we
things.
will-
All right.
I'll get it to you, and I'll help you.
And
Thank you.
if nothing else, we can get them from Food City.
That would be great. It's a lot easier to hit the target, when you get it in good focus.
It is, and we want to see this to be, we want this to be, a successful branch for them. We want to be something that they were going to be very proud of, also something we would be very proud of too, and I know you know this.
Understand. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, folks, next on our agenda tonight is Management Properties Incorporated owner, 1120 West Main Street, parcel number 104, C2-A-2, Jeffrey Benedict, representative. Yes, sir. Please come up and
Luther?
Yes.
That meeting is going to be April the 23rd.
Okay.
April the 23rd.
I'm sure my owners will be happy to attend.
Thank you, sir.
state your name for us and your business address.
It's Jeff Benedict, it's Management Properties, we're at 901 North Running Street in Johnson City, Tennessee.
All right.
And we own the old APCO truck stop / office building that's located at 1120 West Main Street. The building's in a poor state of repair. The roof is out of it. It's degraded as a result of the roof being out of it. And our desire to take the building down, since it's no longer of any value, it would be extremely expensive to try to fix it back. When you had it fixed back, you wouldn't have anything. So it's our desire to take it down, moving everything back down to the grade, and then leave it at that state for now until some future development.
This building is directly across the street from Pioneer Chevrolet.
Yes, it is.
And it's where they previously had their used car
Yes.
portion.
Does this include the barber shop?
No.
Yeah, if you want to tear it down while you're there.
And Scott, that was Truckers. The Truckers building is where you were talking about the haircut.
Yeah.
Everybody hung, got french fries and everything after high school, man, you go down there and go to Truckers.
Or 2 o'clock.
Or 2 o'clock in the morning, or 4 o'clock in the morning.
All
I
right.
think this is a real improvement.
I think you're right, man. So now let me add, just this will not be held against you. I just want to know, do you have any in the back of your mind plans for it, or just?
None.
Okay.
Zero.
All right.
Just the building's a wreck.
I guess, well,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't think that we approved his request as submitted.
I'll second it.
additional discussion?
Yeah, I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to ask if there are any environmental issues on that property.
Yes, there are. In fact, when it was a storage facility for fuel, some leaked out, and we've worked with the state of Virginia to remediate the property. In fact, that's ongoing. And it just takes a while to retrieve all the, in this case, diesel out of the soil.
Gotcha. So nothing would ever go back on until such time as you remediated all of that?
Correct. Well, I would guess that would be the case. I mean, I wouldn't go out and buy it. Its current condition, environmentally speaking.
Okay, that's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any additional discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. So do I need to get a permit from you at a later date?
Yes, sir, you'll have to come back and get a permit through the building department.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Mr. Newman.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, next on the agenda tonight are old business or matters that are not on the agenda, and there is on here at the discussion of proposed changes to the Planning Commission ordinance, and you have a copy of that is attached to your agenda tonight.
I do not.
What this does is just to remove the council member and leave the town manager as a member of the commission.
Not a non-voting member.
This
Was it non-voting member?
It doesn't say
Not
that.
sure.
No, it doesn't say non-voting.
That's not what this says. It says that the town manager would be a voting member and that you would end up without the council. And I assume that you, because of the number 7 to 15, that you would have to make sure you have 7. So if you didn't have 7 with the council member, you'd have to appoint an additional person. But what this says is you would that the town manager would continue to be a voting member of the commission.
I mean, it would, to change it, otherwise would be the insertion of 2 more, put ex parte or non-voting.
Ex officio, we have learned.
Right, right.
Yeah, well, yeah, it would make it a tiebreaker, wouldn't it?
Well, not an ex officio.
Yeah, it could make it a tiebreaker on the one if it wasn't. That'd be a precarious position to be in.
Yeah, well, it's all precarious right now.
It is.
You
We
know,
don't-
my concern, we discussed this last time, it would be, I really think that as an advisory committee, either A, we do what it says here, or at least one person who goes back to the council be familiar with what happened, so that if there's any discussion, 2 things. 1, they can bring it to the discussion, and 2, that doesn't put the pressure on the staff member or the chair to have to show up at those meetings. And I think, and the situation that comes to mind is the situation we had when we had to yank the certificate of appropriateness for the development out on West Main Street, and where and the nature of the discussion. I think I think it's important for somebody, whether it's town manager or whoever it is, to be able to go back to council and say, this is the way the discussion went, because you can't always reflect that in the minutes. And I think that, there may be, if council members may have questions, say, well, this is odd, or we disagree, or maybe you should go back, and I think if you don't have that representation, it makes the communication more difficult.
So I guess my question to that would be, why change what's already here?
Well, I don't necessarily think we need to. I mean, I'm not necessarily, all I'm saying is, if there is a change, the change has to be, because there was some discussion of saying, well, let's not have the town council member or the town manager, and all I'm saying is, I mean, I'm happy with the way it works now.
Yeah.
I have no desire to change it. All I'm saying is, if you make a change, you need to have at least one representative here who can communicate what happened, because part of the discussion last time was that there should be some independence of this body, and frankly, this is not an independent body. Like the EDA is an independent body. This is not an independent body. It's a body that recommends the council.
Well, it's not designed to be. It wasn't designed to be in the first place. I agree with you. I'll be honest with you. I don't see the change as a necessary change. I think that, Mike Chandler, everybody's had the Mike Chandler classes. Kenny, I think you had the Mike Chandler classes. Mike says, well, this is not what I like to have. To have any town manager or a town council person on or city person on the planning commission. But that's just a personal, that's just personal, we get that filter down from him, but that's just a personal opinion. I think at the last count, there were 17 entities in the state that still have council members, and they feel like it's been good for them. It hasn't gone down in quite a while.
I can't see any issues that have arisen from this body. I mean, there was some perception of that, but that's certainly not been, my experience. And I think there are times when the council agrees with us, and and times when they disagree with us. I was going to say at times when they're wrong.
I guess that's my only issue with the council member being on here, and it has, I've been doing this now for 11 years, so I've been on this body for 11 years, and Mickey was on here for 22 years, or however long he was town manager beforehand. We always had a council member, but I don't know that this has ever happened. Rick will know if it's happened during his tenure, but if you had a situation where council member was put into a position of, and maybe it really doesn't make a difference, of having to change his vote at the council level from what he did.
And I don't know that that's ever happened, but I will tell you something real interesting is, in going through the training, and this is why the training is so important, is that this body is to look at what the codes are and what all the stuff is to make sure that they're being followed, the overlay districts, all the stuff like that. But when it gets to council, it can be a political decision, and they might not agree with this planning commission, and sometimes that somebody might be fighting for their political life, and they change some council members' opinions and vote. We've done our job here in the planning commission. We do what we think is right, and we forward it on to them for their approval. If it becomes a political, hot potato, then so be it. We've done the best we could, and we've done what we felt was, we followed the guidelines. Then the council has their choice. So I think that as you look down here, a council person can vote and vote with the board here, and it goes to council. And because it is a political hot potato, that person can change it. I have not known them to do that. It hasn't happened when I'm here, since I've been here. And I can't think of anyone else I can't think of anyone else when Kathy was here, anyone else. But, so I think it's nice to have a council person on here. And one of the reasons is that council's not required, which they should be required, to be a certified planning commissioner. Every council member should be a certified planning commissioner. Everybody that's on that board right now, except for one person, is a certified planning commissioner. Every one of them. After the next election, you're not going to have but one. So I think it's really important to have someone that is certified on here and a planning commissioner that can report to it. And like Greg said, they can tell. They can tell the council, well, this is why I was voted for, this is why I voted for it. And then if that council feels like it's politically, not to their advantage, and they have whatever reason they want to choose not to approve what we've asked them to, then that at least there's a voice on there saying this is why it was done. So I don't see any reason to change it either. I think it's worked fine for how many years?
At least 33 that I'm aware of. I don't know when it actually originally occurred.
How did this first get started, so to speak? I saw it on the agenda about 3 meetings ago or so.
Yeah, I don't know where.
I didn't.
It was something that occurred at the council level, and there was some public input into it. And some members of the public felt like that there was an inherent conflict of interest in us being on there. And then I think, I'm not exactly sure what the push was by the council to say, well, let's go ahead and just do it. And
We'll look into it. I think they just wanted to look into it. I don't think they particularly said they wanted to do it or not do it. And they certainly don't need an up or down vote from us. to decide what they're gonna decide.
Well, part of the discussion last time from the audience was that level of independence, which is why I said, we aren't independent. There are commissions and authorities that are, but as a body that recommends to the council, we specifically are not an independent body, nor are we designed to be.
And this is not an area that requires the planning commission to make a recommendation to council. Council is free to do whatever they want to do in regards to ordinances of the town. Is council seeking a recommendation from the planning commission, or?
Not that I've heard.
This is just
Not-
for our
not that I've heard.
information.
Well, here's the thing. I think if the planning commission wanted to say they would like for that to happen, I think that they certainly would accept that. I don't know whether they would vote for, whether they're gonna vote for this or not. I mean, I have no idea. In fact, I don't even know if it'll come up for a vote.
Well, because it relates to the planning commission, I think the council would definitely want to weigh in from the planning commission on what we all felt like would work the best for the town as a whole. You're exactly right. We don't know. If it winds up on a council agenda, they might very well say, we're going to take Rick and Greg off of it, or they might say, make us ex officio.
And I think as a fallback, ex officio would be fine. I think removing the council member and the town manager totally from the process, to me, would be a mistake. Because of the communication.
Well, I agree. And the other thing is if the council member is taken off and Greg's left on, or vice versa, and they are a voting member, then you put them in a pretty tough situation if they're the tiebreaker.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But somebody thinking it's an inherent conflict of interest. I don't buy that. I mean, I don't see it as a conflict of interest. If anything, because you're not getting any money out of it, you're not doing anything. That basically what you're doing is you're trying to do the best you can on both boards.
Well, and I think when there have been conflicts in my time on the planning commission, planning commissioners normally go, I would say, overboard on making sure that they don't experience any conflict should there be a potential
Yeah,
conflict.
you're a prime example. You've gone out of your way to say, I am conflicted. I cannot.
Wayne did that the last meeting.
Yeah.
So
I think we're very cognizant of that fact.
And I'll play devil's advocate here a little bit, but the most controversial matter that we've all had in the last 2 or 3 years has been the Meadows project. Everywhere. Everybody knows publicly on this commission, on the town council, that I have had all the direct involvement with the developers and everything throughout that process. So if there is a perception on my part from the public, it might be that I'm here, I've spent all this time with a developer, and maybe, I can tell you it's not, but maybe my decision is biased in that regard.
I think the court looked at this issue about the Meadows and whether or not whether this bank worked in a proper manner, and they found that we did, and we found that everything, and Kenny, you're exactly right, it all boils down to perceptions, exactly what it is. And so, and I think that this move might be so that that council person, isn't perceived to be in conflict. I'll just tell you what, anybody who wants to be in politics, they need to have a thick enough skin to say, heck with it, and I'm gonna do what's right. And if they can't do that, then they probably shouldn't be on council to begin with.
Well, and one thing, going back to what you just said, Greg, a lot of what we do here, just like the discussion tonight, we're not necessarily here always to vote things up and down. What we're trying to do is to do things that would be a benefit to the town. And so the direction we gave the gentleman tonight, the direction we gave him when we were working with Captain D's and we wanted trees planted in certain ways. I mean, what we're trying to do is, if we do it right and we review what we have, we're always going to develop some sort of a relationship with the developer, because we want things to be the way we want them to be. We don't always agree on that, but that's what the goal is. And so, spending the time we spend to review it, to talk to them, hopefully what we end up with is those people wanting to come to do business in Abingdon in a way that works with us and that we think is appropriate.
Well said.
So what is what's the desire of the planning commission? Do we, I mean, we either make a recommendation back as to, we like this ordinance, that we've reviewed it, we modify it to some extent, or we thank the town council for giving us the opportunity to express our opinion on it, but that's up to the council to adopt ordinances, and modify ordinances, and we leave that within their bailiwick.
I like that.
I'm gonna say, I just think if they're gonna make a change, they need to keep one position on the board, but not vote.
Yeah.
But that's if they make a change. I'm not too bothered with the way that.
I don't know that there's any big hurry on this. I mean, you could always table this. You got two members who are not present here tonight. We could discuss it again. And, you know, I think I could agree with what Scott says. If they want to get rid of anybody, get rid of one and keep one on. Whether that one they keep on is ex officio or a voting member. And
It ain't broke, don't fix it. So, I mean, that's my feeling.
well, the only lawsuit that I'm aware of we ever got in, you're right, you know.
Yeah, you know, and so, you know, the thing about it is, this is a discussion. It doesn't say anything about having to take a vote or take it, it just
we
says a
don't have
discussion.
to.
We don't have to send anything up the line.
As
You,
I-
you all could let me convey the message. We've discussed it, and here's what the message is. Without
What is that message? Tell us what that message is.
Without a formal vote, the planning commission really sees this as working the way it is, and they feel a need to have at least one or both of the existing members on there.
But that adoption of ordinances is within the sound discretion of the town council, and we don't feel that it's appropriate for us to, we appreciate the opportunity, and we're thankful that they involved us in the process to keep us advised of where it is, but that's up to the council.
I agree. I think that's good. Nuanced well.
I'm good with that.
Is that good?
Works for me.
No action necessary.
Yeah. If you'll just relay that. Absolutely.
Is this, I have not looked, we got our packet today, but is that in our packet? Is that in our packet?
It's
Good.
not on.
Perfect, good. That's good. That's good.
All right. At this point in time, I would invite anyone who might be in the audience that would like to address the planning commission on any matter which is not on the agenda, or a matter for that, in regards to that is on the agenda, to address the planning commission. If you come to the podium, give us your name and address, and your comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone that'd like to address the commission? All right, thank you.
One thing before we adjourn, I noticed that that the Hutton house again has had all the trees taken down, but they're still just laying there in the yard. I assume that that's going to be dealt with through.
Well, we'll do
Attrition or
we'll
rotting
do
or
our
what?
best.
Yeah,
We'll do
rot,
our
but-
best. Ann is good at creating technicalities.
I assume that work's not complete.
I would hope not, but I haven't had a chance to talk to her about it.
A related question, that railing's really loose up there. Is there any,
Well, there's a
Wait.
dispute over who owns the railing, so
well, if somebody falls off it, then I guess that person that
Shotgun lawsuit.
is responsible can pay.
yeah. Matt's fully aware of that railing.
I would want the town to own it. I would.
Yeah, but again, it's one of those things that we continually have to deal with that, and at some point we have ordinances, and we need to enforce those ordinances. And if we don't enforce the ordinances in that situation, my concern is when you do start to enforce an ordinance, if I was and I am a property owner on Valley Street, if you came to me to enforce an ordinance that I didn't feel like I needed to comply with, all I'd have to do is point there and say, hey, you know, you don't really have an ordinance because you don't enforce it.
And
That's
rightly
my
so.
only concern.
And rightly so. I agree with that. I think that's, you know, and that's the conundrum that administration and yeah, code enforcement go through every day. And it is a tough thing to do. I wish it was as easy. I wish it was as easy, Kenny, as you say it, you know, because that's exactly what, as a homeowner, I'd say the same thing. When they do it, I'll do it. Until it, y'all beat it off the property. And that's true.
But I mean,
trying to get somebody to do it
at some point, you know, you're gonna have to take a stand and say, look, you know, we've been absolutely as patient as we can be, and there are ordinances in place, and those ordinances have to be obeyed. And whatever the situation is, again, I think the problem is gonna be, and I say this, there are times when, you know, you have to do that, or you're gonna have issues where people, you know, other people disobey an ordinance that's very visible. I think if it's a tiny thing, that's one thing, but this has been so visible.
Yeah. Not to deviate too much from what you're talking about, but it was truly amazing to me when those trees came down, they were solid. There was not a hollow part of those trees, which, you know, we worried for years and years. Of course, there were some dead branches up at the top.
Right. Well, proper deadheading and you know, Kevin Sigmund would have helped her and, you know, would help them try to make sure that they could have kept those trees for another 100 years,
Mhm.
which would have benefited all of us in town.
Am I missing something on the railing that, like, it would take a surveyor a good 30 minutes to determine if it's on right of way or not? If
Not
it's
with
on
the
the right of
lawyer
way.
it won't. Not with the lawyer it won't. It'll take 2 years.
Yeah.
We had similar situation on the other property.
Better
On
watch
the
your
other
surroundings.
end. On the
Where
other
there's
end.
no sidewalk.
And it boiled down to being able to get onto the property. And she was, at that time, I haven't talked to her in a while, but at that time, she was reluctant to allow any town staff to walk on her property.
Well, I know down there are survey markers. Yeah, the original survey stones indicate she's probably right on that one, but this one on Valley Street, I don't think.
You're talking about the sidewalk? You're talking about the sidewalk on Main?
Yeah.
On Main Street, yeah.
I mean, it got down to the nails that were driven into the roadway is how far into the nail is the line? Is it in the center of the nail, or is it the beginning of the nail, or the far end of the nail?
And Greg is the only person with the town that she'll speak to.
You know, maybe, you know, well, the thing about it is eventually, as you say, they just need to be answered. Just bite the bullet and see what's going to be on which side of the nail, and then go from there. I mean, you got to find out
I
something.
mean, you know, you got ordinances, and at some point, you know, the idea is, well, she's gonna be litigious. Well, if that's gonna be your answer, then if the ordinance is gonna stand, then you're gonna have to be litigious.
Yeah, just go in. I agree. I agree.
Wayne, you want to go with me to talk to her?
I'm busy with that.
And I just, you know, I don't wanna beat the dead, I just wanted to bring that up.
I think Kenny, that you're going to find that 99.9% of people agree with exactly what you say when they do, and so you know, so.
Yeah, my concern truly would be if you go to somebody else and say something to them, they're gonna point at that, and then you really have no ordinance. That's my concern, is there are times when you really want to be able to enforce an ordinance, and, you know, like I say, I think you have a problem.
This would be a good question for all the new council members that are running.
All right, any additional discussion tonight? Other matters that are not on the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, stand up.
And run.
When we were talking about the thing, you were waiting for a motion. I thought
You know what? One time, but I have a long memory.
I'll never forget that.